Today we have Faith Clark with us from Melody of Autism, or Faith Clark. You can find her online as well. Hi, it's Faith.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm
So
good. I
glad to
don't
be
quite
here.
have my brain and my mouth working together yet, but it's coming.
Good, good. It's summer and the summer rhythm can throw us all off. But we
It,
were chatting before. You've been a good mom today with the summer activities,
yes.
whereas I've been a bum.
Mhm. Yeah, and sometimes with your EntreLife, you have to take time to do things with your family as well, because I believe there isn't any work-life balance. It's work-life integration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. I tell people the balance is like the unicorn. It
Mhm.
doesn't exist.
No, no, you have to
No,
integrate it into your life. So for me, that means I'm going to take the time that I need to take for my family, for special occasions or special events, so I can help expose my kids and my family to other things as well. So today we actually went downtown Ottawa and took advantage of the opportunity to see the Royal Air Force from Britain flying over Parliament
wow.
Hill. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Just the formation, for anybody in Canada who saw the snowbirds, you know how close the formation is and how intense it is to see all the fighter planes flying overhead in formation. And the Royal
Wow.
Air Force flies over and also lets the jets out of like the red, white, and blue stripes for the British flag. So
Wow.
it was pretty neat. And that was just something that was happening today that I saw spur of the moment last night in the paper. And it's like, let's take the kids because I have extra kids here right now. And it's something that you have to do. You fit in opportunities where they come and where they're available. And as entrepreneurs, we do that both in our business life and our personal life.
Absolutely. I think adaptability is like one of the biggest features of a
Mhm.
successful entrepreneur, being able to see an opportunity and being able to respond to it. And whether that's at home or in the lives of our kids or family or in the business space, it's the same. And the privilege of being able to just respond
Mhm.
and serve our families the way they need in the moment, I think is such a gift.
And really going with the flow. When you're able to basically spin on a dime to change direction, that's what you need as an entrepreneur, because things
Absolutely.
are going to go sideways and backwards and forwards and every other direction you can think of. So we need to be very agile and very ready to pivot or shift gears or put on that 40th hat, whatever needs to be done to get things done. So I think that's one of the things that makes us as parents such great entrepreneurs, and why they even say that women entrepreneurs have companies that seem to do better at times, because it's sort of innately built into us, especially if you are a parent, because you're already doing that. So it's like, oh, there's a temper tantrum with my 2-year-old. It's like, yeah, whatever. Whatever. Temper tantrum from my supplier. Yeah, that doesn't faze me. It doesn't faze us anymore. So,
The juggle is always there. There's always
yeah.
multiple pieces, multiple voices. And just, I tell people that if you have a couple of kids, then you've quickly figured out you can't respond to everybody's stuff all the time. So you're quickly figuring out what's the priority right now. And then let's respond to that and then move to the next thing. So absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly. What's bleeding, what's mortally wounded, and what's just a scrape that can be tended to later. It's like, if it's
That's
not
right.
bleeding, leave me alone.
No one's dying. Okay, good.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and same thing in business. It's like, okay, do you need a Band-Aid? Are you dying? Do you need urgent medical attention? So
Right.
tell me what level of the situation it is. Is it a red alert, or is it just sort of a caution flag? And if it's a caution flag, you can probably deal with it on your own. So, so I wanted to talk a little bit about you. I met you at the amazing, the expert speaker course put on by Majid. I can't even say his last name. Majid like magic is the easiest
Magic
way.
like magic, absolutely.
Yes, and I loved your story. I am a huge fan of storytelling and a huge believer in storytelling, actually, not just a fan. And I was really drawn into you talking about autism and how it shifted your life, and how you're adapting your life to include it. So can you tell me a little bit about what you were doing before the autism diagnosis, and then what happened after? It was your son, correct, was diagnosed?
Yes, this is my son. Hi. Yes. So my son is 20 years old now. It's like, it's amazing how much
Mm-hmm.
time has passed in the blink of an eye. And before autism, I was an engineer, and I was an educator. I taught at the college level computer engineering. And I was reasonably comfortable with that rhythm of life. I love explaining stuff to people. And that, although I felt like academics was a little bureaucratic, I was like, this is cool. I can manage this. And I remember that year teaching when I also had the autism diagnosis, because it was a complete, like everything, it's like a bomb got detonated in your life, and nothing's the same. And so I told people, I had some graduate students working with, and in my mind, I said, these kids are either going to get A's or they're going to fail, because I had no capacity for nuance. I had no capacity to think about anything outside of this massive experience of what does autism mean. Back in the day, it was like there was Rain Man, and that's it. There was you know institution. I shut off my professional side. I didn't feel like that was something I could pay attention to. I didn't care about it anymore. And I basically turned in and said, I have to figure this out. But I applied myself, like I'm a researcher and I'm a instructor. And so I figured out I could use the skills that I already had to learn what I needed to learn to help my son, and then to train other people to do it. So I kind of pivoted and focused on, let's fix him, let's solve autism. And in the course of doing that, of course, you encounter burnout, because when you're trying to solve a problem the size of the universe, or like my professor likes to say, you're trying to boil the ocean, you quickly find out you can't. And so emotional overwhelm and the anxiety and burnout, it was a pretty intense experience of deep sadness, deep anxiety, and no money, because you throw all your financial resources at this problem, and then that's it. 2 years of that, and the credit cards are maxed out, and that's about what you can do. So you really do. I certainly hit the wall of my own ability, and had to again turn inward, but in a different way. And just like as to what you were just saying earlier, like what's the priority? What do we really want? And decided that I wanted Jaden to be happy. I wanted him to be peaceful in his body. I wanted him to be calm, and nothing else mattered. I didn't need to prioritize potty training. I didn't need to prioritize speaking. I had to get rid of the ever increasing list of things he couldn't. As old as your child, the bigger the list of goals become, because the more things he can't do. If he couldn't speak at 2 and he can't speak at 3, suddenly there's a whole rack of other goals above speaking that he also can't do. And I basically decided to let all that go, and to tune into him in a different way, to try to understand him and understand myself, understand what's this about. I feel autism is a calling now, and why were we chosen, and what am I supposed to understand from this that I can share with others. And Jaden's name means God has heard, so I really took it as guidance, that there's insight that I would gain that would be for other people, that God had heard other people's prayers, and hopefully mine. And as I paid attention, I would be able to be helpful to other people. And so just did that pivot and started a business, organized myself, and that's been the journey that we've been on for the past several years.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we already have covered my next question, actually. I was going to ask you a little bit about your struggle as a parent. Well, I still will ask you this one a little bit. I wanted to know a little bit about before the diagnosis, when you still weren't quite sure what was going on. How did you find it affected you as a parent? Like, I know with my own son, as he was struggling with some of his own issues, not autism, something else, but I know how difficult it felt for me trying to figure out how I could help him. Did you have any of those struggles?
I didn't have them post-diagnosis because we got our diagnosis, our suspected diagnosis pretty early. Jaden was 22 months when we got he probably has autism. And officially he was 2.5 by the time we knew for sure he had autism. So what we experienced though was a regression. And so it was more this puzzled sense of he is doing this thing and then he's not doing it anymore. What is that? And that puzzled experience kind of was at odds with my optimism because I'm like, he's brilliant. So he's spinning all of the stacking wheels. Instead of stacking the stacking wheels, the stacking circles, he's spinning them on the side. He must be an engineer.
Okay.
You know, so it was this competition of, but this is strange. And I wasn't sure where to land. Where it became really confusing was once they put the word autism on it. And at the time I was living in Jamaica and I didn't feel like I didn't, like, what am I supposed to do with that? I don't know what this even means. And somebody handed me the one book on applied behavioral analysis and said, this is what we do. And I read it and it's like, I can't apply this. There isn't this, I can't translate what this book says to my real life. Mm-hmm. So then I'm screwed. And so it was that, you know, a couple of years of this sense of, this isn't something I signed up for. This isn't the child I thought I had. This grief and this mourning of the loss of a child that you thought you had, to the acceptance of a child that you do have, but you don't know how to know who he is. And so that was a very, I had postpartum depression with Jaden. And so I knew that postpartum depression was my first experience with a significant depression. Mm-hmm. This was the same. The depression with diagnosis was the same. And so I felt it and I was like, oh, I recognize this feeling, except it's bigger and deeper and didn't feel like it had anywhere to go. Postpartum depression felt like it would go as a child aged or as I got better at waking up in the middle of the night. This depression felt like there was nowhere for it to go and I had no tools to kind of combat it or help my child. So
that's something a lot of us entrepreneurs go through. We go through periods of depression for different reasons, and some of them very, very severe periods of depression. So thank you for sharing that with me and with our listeners, because it's really important to know that you're not alone and that you can keep going and do amazing things, even if you are having a little bit of a struggle right now, or a lot of a struggle right now. You will come through the other side. Sorry, bear with me here. I'm like...
No, that's cool. I wanted to say though,
mm-hmm.
I wanted to say that the depression and anxiety cycle became just something I had to learn to care for. Mm-hmm. I had to acknowledge as part of this journey with a child with special needs, I became more vulnerable emotionally and physically. And so part of caring for him had to become caring for me, the new me. It's not just this child that I have to now know. I am now a different person, or I'm becoming a different person because I've responded to this traumatic incident. Mm-hmm. That's what it felt like, right? And so I do heal, so I did heal and I have been healing, but there is this moment that changed my perspective on a lot of things, that created a whole different set of responses that were physiological as well as emotional, as well as just in how I thought about the world and what I did. So I had to learn to care for faith. And that does mean protecting myself or noticing when I am mm-hmm. at risk for anxiety or depression or PTSD. I don't have an official diagnosis, but any like obsessive types of thinking and catastrophizing and all of those mental patterns, that's the daily thing that I have to monitor myself for.
I so agree. I've struggled with depression myself for a number of years and have recently went through another period of depression where I've really struggled. And it really is learning how to care for yourself. It's learning how to live with the new you. Well, it's that time in the show where we're interrupted by the puppy who can open doors.
He's magical.
Yes, she opens doors like crazy. Anyways, back to what is really a really important topic, and I'm glad we're talking more about it. When our kids are struggling, that's one thing. But when our kids or family, when people around us are struggling, when they're hurting, we can also be hurting. And we often forget to take care of ourselves. So it's really good that you were able to identify the need to take care of yourself and the need to learn you. Mm-hmm. I find it's also something that has really allowed me to be intimately aware of my own moods and what level of work I'm capable of on that day. Like there are certain days where I will just know that my day is off. I can still get my stuff done, but I know I'm not in that ideal frame of mind, or I know that it's not the day for me to go and be attending an event. Now, sometimes I'll push myself because sometimes you need that too.
Right.
Also know, and I can honor myself and I can say, you know what? It's okay. You're not crazy. Well, I am crazy because that's like one of our core values at EntreLife, to be a little crazy and weird. But it's okay. It's okay to feel off. It's okay to feel a little lost or a little confused. And it's okay to acknowledge that and take that in, because we also can understand when we're also doing amazing, when the ideas are just firing all over the place. And it's something that, because you've suffered in the past, because I've suffered in the past and now, anyone who's went through a battle with their moods, I find that we're more acutely aware. Like to the point I know for myself, I used to get scared if I was too happy.
Yeah.
Because I would be afraid I would crash down. So that's a little odd, but it's also normal.
Yeah. I think that this conversation we're having, I think it's a human, what we're talking about is just the way of being human. And part of this experience has said to me, our businesses or schools or social structures need to be built for humans. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I first got introduced to special education, and as I, because I'm this academic nerdy person, as I looked into the philosophies and looked into the mechanisms for helping this child who struggles to learn, I was like, wait, why aren't we doing this with everyone? And then as I deal with my own anxiety and depression issues, or just my own self-care, my own self-regulation, and these are techniques that I'm learning from therapists, I'm like, why isn't this just normal? Because this is the human journey. And the way I'm building my business is my business honors the rhythm of my life, which is kind of crazy, chaotic, and, I need to be able to respond to multiple things. And I'm wondering, why aren't we building businesses that respond to the rhythm of human life? Like the structures that we've created are artificial and don't fit the human being. And while I wouldn't, invite a special needs parenting journey on anyone, I feel grateful for something as kind of shocking as the experience was for me, to kind of say to me, the fact that you can conform to the status quo doesn't mean it's healthy. And so I do think that we want to just be part of creating spaces that give us the space. And my daughter does deal with, she's highly sensitive, and being able to help her advocate for herself and speak up and leave spaces that she knows she shouldn't be in this moment, and having her in an educational space that honors that. I'm like, why aren't all schools honoring this? And I think there's just a call, I guess, a response that so many of us who walk this journey, whether it's with mental illness or emotional disorders or special needs developmental challenges, there's a challenge that's coming to us to change how things are around us so that it just fits us better, all
Yeah.
of us.
You're making really good points. And I also question, why are we not teaching everyone this? One of the things that I'm happy to see is that a lot more schools are including mindfulness or
Yeah.
yoga. They're doing mindfulness music in the halls, or I'm blanking on the word, but the talking, the focusing, and they're piping that through the PA system. Some of the schools are doing the tapping, and it's like, that is absolutely amazing. Thank you for helping our kids learn other ways to cope, because while we're facing our own challenges, we are getting the benefit of learning different ways to help not only our own children, but other people work through issues they're facing. So we're learning about yoga techniques, we're learning about breathing techniques, we're learning about ways to help people calm down. And all those things are things that can be so beneficial for other people, especially people who may not realize that they're having issues, such as slipping into depression, such as undiagnosed autism. So there's all these things we're struggling through. It could even be sudden grief or high anxiety, PTSD, any number of things. So wouldn't it be best to give people the tools before they need them?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
just have it built into the environment. Like we have, you think about it, our houses come with, mains to get water into the house and pipes with light. And like there's infrastructure that supports our life. And I do think that these tools are part of the infrastructure that support our life. And so really, as just in our business building infrastructure for ourselves and for the people that we serve and for staff, and in the building of all of our support structures, we want to be thinking about how to integrate, back to your word, integrate all these things. So it's one thing. It's like drinking water. Take a breath.
And I can sure use those skills, like the skills that we're talking about. I could sure use them a lot more than I could use trigonometry.
I teach math sometimes, but I agree with you, right? It
serves a purpose. We need to expose people to different things, because if they have those skills and want to go into that job, then yes, they need it. But for the average student, I really wonder how much of some of this math we really need. Do we really need to keep pushing it as much if it's not something that's highly interesting to the student? So why not bring in more of balance sheet, like balancing your checkbook, life math, learning how to do car loans and debit cards, and first aid courses, and things like mindfulness and self-care. Like, let's bring in some of the actual life skills they really need, and
conversation,
how it could change. Yeah, it could really drastically change the world. Plus, like, I really don't need trigonometry. Now, algebra, yes, or at least basic algebra and problem solving, yes, 100%. Even Pythagorean theorem, I actually calculated the radius of the circle for getting the ring a couple months ago. But I really don't need trigonometry. I don't need advanced geometric shapes with this and that. I don't know. Like, I couldn't tell you what half of those trapezoid type shaped things are anymore. But we need some real life training, and that would prepare us so much more. So, okay, I'm looking at my list here because I'm getting completely off topic, but I think we've talked about a lot of them. So computer engineer, doctor of philosophy. My notes are all over the place. They're a little bit scattered. Whoa. Can't see our podcast listeners, but I'm showing Faith my amazing notes that I made a while ago.
Beautiful handwriting.
Yeah. So I have I have two more questions for you, but I have one major question for you before we sort of start wrapping up. we talked briefly about your background in education and as a professor, but I want to know a little bit more about faith growing up.
Hmm.
So tell me what your childhood was like. Like, what made you sort of go towards the career path you did? What type of atmosphere, or city, or country? I think you mentioned you were from Jamaica.
I'm from Jamaica, and I went to one of the few high schools. It is still considered a prestigious all girls high school, and so I got to be in school with the prime minister's daughter, and those people, the thems. And so I think I, without knowing it, learned that anything was possible. There wasn't a sense of there wasn't even a gender, kind of disparity. Girls can't anything. It's a thousand of us and we're all girls. Um, but I also figured out that for me, I connected well with people. I didn't know it consciously at the time, but I was an oddball. I wasn't as smart as the smart girls, so I thought, and I wasn't as pretty as the pretty girls, and I wasn't, the bad girls, the kind of girls that are kind of edgy. I wasn't them, so I was in this weird, not fitting in place, and just had to build connections in the ways that I could. So fast forward to leaving high school and deciding I wanted to teach because I wanted to have time and space, and I saw that teachers had time and space, and I felt I could. I listened well, I could connect with people, I can explain almost anything. So I decided I was going to teach. The question was only teach what? And this was in lieu of wanting to do medicine just before, but I saw the dead bodies that the medical students practice on. Yeah, no, I don't think we're going to work on medicine. So I was entering college, trying to decide on a major, and had enough of, in my high school transcript in Jamaica, you do choose from the beginning based on your high school subjects, what you've done in high school. And I'd had a broad enough high school transcript that I had a pretty wide range of choices. And I remember this being quite flippant. It's like, okay, biology, that means I need to go look in the microscope. Nope. And I kind of just whittled things down until I got to chemistry, which I love, and mathematics. And then I was in the chemistry lab, and the chemistry, the reagent in my beaker caught a fire. And I thought, I don't think I want to do any more chemistry. I like chemistry in the book. I don't like chemistry in the lab. So it was, I said this story to say, and then I chose computers because I said, the computers don't catch a fire. And I'd never touched a computer before. I wasn't a programmer at the time. There was no widgeting and playing around with stuff. I'd not had a computer at home. But I decided to just experiment with computers and did computer programming. And so math and computer programming as my degree, and I would teach that. And I knew I would teach whatever I studied. But it feels random, and yet standing now, maybe 20 plus years later, I help people think strategically about the components of their business and their lives and integrate it. And it's like, I didn't know, that's systems design. And that at that moment, when I was randomly saying computers didn't explode and burn, I was learning how to connect this bit of code with that bit of code to create code or to reuse code and to make things work together, so that when some random user said, hey, we want software that does this, I could plot a path, and kind of seeing myself now integrating all those skills, systems design and kind of systems thinking, as well as my ability to plot out a learning path is how I help people now. So my growing up felt eclectic. To me as a child, it felt boring, but now I stand back, it feels exotic, just walking through green grass and blue skies and fluffy clouds and lush trees was just a normal part of my existence with no winter. I don't know why we need winter. Why do we need cold? And to have the beach right there, and to go to the beach and eat the fish that was just caught 10 minutes ago, and that was life for me growing up. So autism prompted me. I came to the US for graduate school, but autism really brought me here to live, because at that point when I was confronted with Jaden's diagnosis, I So I don't have resources. And then that had me moving to North America. But Jamaica will always feel like home.
Very good. One final question before we end our segment here. What would you tell your 13-year-old self?
My 13-year-old self, what would I tell her?
What is one piece of advice you would give her?
Mm-hmm. It all works out. I would tell her it all works out. And so she doesn't need to know. She doesn't need to have figured it out. She doesn't need to fit. She doesn't need to conform. And it's okay. She'll survive this phase of people not understanding or feeling like an oddball. She'll survive it. I know she's probably thinking, shut up. What do you mean I'll survive it? I wanted to stop. But I would still hug her and say, you'll be such a blessing to others because you walked through this period of time. So relax. It's okay.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Faith, for joining us today. If you want to find out more about Faith, look up Faith Clark online. Melody of Autism is also another place you can find her. And it's been a delight chatting with you today.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca. It's been lovely to just reminisce and to reflect on these really important topics.
Yes, I really enjoyed talking and getting a little deeper into our EntreLifes, because it is our EntreLife. Our EntreLife is our business
It's
and
just life.
personal. It's life. And
Yeah.
it's an amazing life we've created. We've each created for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I am so tired here. I'm like just going on and on. But thank you very, very much for joining me. And we will catch you all next time. And I hope you'll tune in to the next episode of My EntreLife. I'm Rebecca Palmer of My EntreLife, and thank you for joining us.